president, it's going to have to be senators like Bernie who pass the legislation that we need to actually unlock the America First vision of the future. And I'll tell you this, our Republican Party, for the last 10 years, we have, outside of Trump and the movement he's led, a lot of our traditional Republicans, even some of those who are the kinds that will run against Bernie, our party has been lost. I don't just mean lost and lazy in the get out the vote sense of lazy. I mean lazy in a deeper sense of even defining who we really are and what do we actually stand for. And you see, the left is very good at this. They'll give you an ugly vision of race, gender, sexuality, climate. And our side's sitting here criticizing that vision without offering an alternative vision of our own. What do we actually stand for? It means we believe in the ideals of 1776. Ideals like merit and the pursuit of excellence, free speech, the rule of law. That, you know what, your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. That is why we need the largest mass deportation in American history, which this man stands for right here. Means the people we elect to run the government should actually run the government, not the unelected bureaucrats. And so let me tell you something. If you want to stand for that American dream, vote for Bernie Moreno. If you want to stand for free speech in this country, vote for Bernie Moreno. If you want to stand for American exceptionalism and the rule of law and the idea that we need borders in this country, I'm going to ask you to vote for Bernie Moreno, the man who I have endorsed, who Donald J. Trump has endorsed, the man who's going to stand alongside J.D. Vance representing this state as the next senator from this state of Ohio, our home state. And if you all do your part, he's going to do his, Donald Trump will do his, I'm going to do mine. To make sure, not in some fake politician way, not in some cheesy Washington, D.C. way, but in a true way to make sure that our best days as a country are still yet ahead of us. To make sure we will look our kids in the eye and mean it when we tell them that no matter who you are, or where your parents came from, or what your skin color is, or how long your last name is, in some of our cases, that you will still get ahead in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication, and that you know what, you are free to speak your mind at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what we are running to. And with your help electing this man, that is what we're going to revive to save this great country. Thank you all for having me, guys. Good to come back home. God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America. Brother, come on back. Good to see you.
Thank you. Give it up for Vivek. So, I want you to imagine something for a second. I want you to imagine you're born and your dad is a billionaire. All right, think about what most people would do, right? Imagine being scrutinized by the media to the point of insanity. And imagine still staying in a fight after you have death threats against you. You have potentially anthrax sent to your home. You get yelled at and spit at. The media treats you like a criminal, despite the fact that the other guy's son is a complete degenerate. And the guy I'm about to introduce is an amazing father, an amazing human being, an incredibly smart business person, and yet he and his family choose to stay in this fight for us. Can Butler County please help me in welcoming Donald Trump Jr.?
Well, thank you so much, Bernie. I really appreciate that. It's great to be here. Vivek, thank you. Kimberly, of course. I just worked for Kimberly. Bernie, they may have made this stage a little too big. I've seen far too many of our leaders get lost. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. I don't have to even elaborate at this point, but that's where we are. I mean, think about that. The leader of the free world could get lost on a 20 by 20 platform, and no one even asks if it's okay, right? I mean, you know, Bernie talked a little bit about myself, and I understand that I am not the upstanding human being that Hunter Biden is. I aspire. In my next life, I want to be a Democrat in my next life because, you know, I'd have to drop about, you know, a few thousand points in testosterone and IQ, but, you know, it's so much easier. It's just different. But in all seriousness, guys, I think what's incredible is we have an opportunity right now like we haven't had before. The reality of the situation that we live, the insanity of the policies that have failed so many Americans so badly over the last few years, it's palpable. It's the first time, probably, maybe there's some historians here that can tell me otherwise, but it's the first time where we've actually all will have lived under the policies of the two people on the ballot. Right? We're used to politicians making us promises and telling they're going to get world peace and they're going to increase the economy, and you know, only Trump actually did that. But we heard about it from everyone, right? Like, I remember when peace in the Middle East, that was the holy grail of geopolitical politics, right? Trump does 5 deals, they're like, oh, no big deal. I'm like, well, why didn't you guys do it? You've been in charge for 50 years. You've been telling everyone what they're doing wrong, but you've actually done nothing yourselves. It's a shame, because we elect people who have no business, they've never signed the front of a paycheck, they've never been business people, like Bernie or Donald Trump, who signed the front of a paycheck, not just the back. People who went into work each and every day on weekends, understanding that people's families, their well-being, their livelihood depended on their success. That's who I want as leaders. And in Ohio, you have an incredible opportunity because you can get just that. But there's also a very big contrast in this primary. You have an America First businessman, and you have basically like 2 Liz Cheney clones that he's competing against. No, that's all it is, right? You have pro-amnesty, woke, when I say Republicans, you know, rhinos, that Bernie's competing against, or you have someone that can help implement the policies of the Trump administration. There's one candidate in this race endorsed by Donald Trump. Others pretend, you know, for like the last 2 weeks, when they're in a primary, they pretend they're for Trump, but then you see all of the things that they say about them before that, you realize it's just a lie. You can do that. In all fairness, if you're willing to change the name of the Cleveland Indians to appease like 3 woke lunatics, well, no, what knee won't you bend when you get to Washington, D.C.? And there's real pressure. Real pressure, meaning no one actually cares about it. It's just easy to be woke. It's not an issue that's on the minds of more than like a dozen Americans. And most of them are probably on some sort of payroll. You know, the grift is real. But you cave to that? How long do you think they're going to hold up to the swamp? About milliseconds? Less than a minute? We've seen what that can do. We saw that in my father's first term. We had the Senate, we had the House, but we had weak Republicans. People who were far more concerned about being loved by the Washington, D.C. swamp. The elite, when I say elite, we use that in air quotes because they're only elite because they call themselves that, not because they've actually accomplished anything for Americans. They failed each and every one of us, day in and day out, but because they're part of that group, there's no accountability. So Ohio has an incredible chance to actually put someone in there. Now with Mitch McConnell retiring, we need, yes, another one bites the dust. Check that box, but it's true. Because the leaders that we've sent to Washington, they get to Washington and they assimilate to those values. I've seen it. If we're talking about Leader McConnell, I've watched for the last year as he's told the press in Washington, D.C., because he doesn't really leave Washington, D.C., The Ukraine is the #1 issue for Americans across the country. Now that's weird. Like, I speak to Americans across the country each and every day. It's what I do. Since he started saying that, I've probably spoken to groups like this dozens of times. I think I did the math. It was probably about 45,000 people by now. No, a lot. It's a lot. I'll open up for my father. That's 15,000 people. I'll ask you, is Ukraine a top 3 issue for anyone in the room?
No.
Is it a top 10 issue for anyone in the room?
No.
Okay, so far I've done this now. We've seen it. I don't see anything. Not one. But according to the leader of the United States Senate, it's the #1 issue for Republicans across the country. So far, in 45,000 people, I've had 2 people raise their hand. None of them were top 3. They were top 10. One of the guys I asked, sir, what is it? He misunderstood the question, so he was actually for me. But he raised his hand, so no, I have to be honest. Otherwise, CNN will say that I lied. I'll be canceled. I'll be thrown in the gulags. Not that they're not going to put me there one day anyway, but they'll just accelerate the process, right? By the way, congratulations. I'd like to welcome you to all the lists that I'm on. You are now on because you're extremists for being here. See, I love that is now, that's a badge of honor. It's no longer something to be afraid of, and that's so important. Americans are becoming unafraid. And that's where we need to be. By the way, the second guy that I asked that raised his hand, I said, sir, why is it a top 10 but not a top 3 issue for you? He goes, I am from Kiev, Ukraine. I was like, okay, fine. But it shows just how disjointed it is. I'm going to give that guy a pass because, it's where he's from. But exactly 0 of 45,000. And just so we're clear, when we do polling, a big poll is 1,500 people. Right? Statistical significance. 1,500 people. If you get 2,000. I've done it for 45,000 people. 0. I guarantee you, I've spoken to more Americans this year than Mitch McConnell has in his entire 374-year career in the United States Senate. It's significant, but they couldn't care less. So we have an opportunity to send people who do hear from you, who do live in these communities and understand what the people actually want, who are unafraid to bring that to Washington, D.C. That's where we're at, guys. We've had 4 years under Biden, we've had 4 years under Trump. That's a unique ability, unique experience. Where are you better off? Where are Americans better off?
Trump.
And I'd love for Joe Biden to be successful. I don't think he's capable of being successful given what he's working with, but minor details. But he hasn't been. Objectively, there's not a single metric, economic or otherwise, that we're better off today than we were 4 years ago. We went from peace and prosperity to war and destitution. That's not a great change. But again, what's nice is the insanity that they're trying to sell us. Right? You're doing great under Bidenomics. I'm like, listen, guys, I'm the son of a billionaire from Manhattan. If I'm pissed off when I go to the grocery store, now again, I'm not pretending I know exactly where I'm from. I know exactly who I am. But if I have sticker shock, they can't lie their way out of that, folks. They can't manipulate the data. And they'll try, don't get me wrong. I mean, you have $1 trillion institution in the mainstream media, you have $1 trillion in big tech that's functioning as the marketing department of the Democrat Party. The problem is people aren't stupid. They feel it, they see it each and every day, and they're sick of being lied to. Americans have watched for the last few years as they become second-class citizens in their own country. You see it. Immigrants displacing elderly veterans from nursing homes for free. I mean, think about that. I mean, you can't even believe it. Housing developments just given to, I'm saying, what is going on here? Children thrown out of their high schools, out of their gymnasiums to make way for free housing for this. The New York mayor wants $10,000 for illegal. I mean, you know what? I imagine there's a lot of Americans in this room that could use $10,000. A lot of Americans that have paid into the system that's ultimately going to afford those illegals that $10,000. And yet they're not thinking about you that way. They couldn't care less.
Shame.
What's happened is the Democrats realize that people are on to the failures of their policies. They realize that it has not worked for the Americans. So what they're trying to do is displace the people who are fleeing the Democrat Party in droves. This border could be shut down in 2 seconds, but they're unwilling to do that. There's no resolve. They're going to try to blame it on Republicans, but honestly, there's no amount of big tech collusion that's going to help that one. I mean, it's so ridiculous, but they'll keep trying. So Ohio, you can do something really special. You can put a true fighter in the Senate. You already have one. I mean, J.D. Vance has to be, if not the greatest senator out there right now. But Ohio can lead that charge in having and taking back control of the institutions that have failed to represent us the way they were supposed to. So Bernie, I want to just thank you for having the guts to get into this. Again, as a business guy, as someone who's done it, as someone who's succeeded in this world, I want that kind of experience representing us. But also, someone who's done it and understands that there's consequences to being vocal as a conservative, not just bending the knee. Trust me, I get it better than most, right? I mean, they wanted to put me in jail for treason, crime punishable by death, you know. At this point for me, that's like Wednesday morning. It's like, if they haven't tried to put me in jail by Wednesday, I'm doing something wrong. I'm losing my touch. You know, my father, he's a young and vibrant man, but, you know, they want to put him in jail for 1,000 years. It seems like a long time, but, you know. But it's true. That's what's going on in our country. Right? The people screaming about fascism for the last 8 years are acting an awful lot like the fascists if they actually understood history. The problem is they don't know history. Just like they don't know math or English. They know the 4,276 genders, but nothing actually useful. By the way, I've been speaking probably for like 10 minutes, so now there's probably 5,000 genders. They've added a couple more just in the 15 minutes that I've been on this stage, but that's the reality. By the way, that's how bad the world is. Like, we're seeing all this evidence of aliens and no one even cares anymore because they're just trying to survive, right? Just think about that for a second, right? That's how insane what's going on really is. They're trying to show you the next shiny object, which is very much on purpose. Like, here, look at this evidence here of aliens. And like, no, I can't feed my family. Exactly. We can't feed our family, but you know what we got? We got another 60 billion for Ukraine. Where they haven't even articulated what victory actually looks like. It's just more money for themselves, their cronies, their buddies, you know, on the board of Raytheon and Boeing. It's like the Nikki Haley faction, like, you know, we'll just reward them. We'll create a couple oligarchs in Ukraine, doesn't matter, who cares? These people are making decisions. We, our children, our grandchildren will be beholden to for generations. And they have no business making even tiny decisions. But it doesn't matter. So we need people who can be there, who can be disruptors. And I just want to thank you, Bernie, for having the guts to get in this race. I get they're not going to make it easy on you. I understand there's a lot of people working hard against you, but Bernie Moreno is going to do an incredible job representing the incredible people of Ohio in Washington, D.C. So make sure everyone knows Bernie is our guy. Bernie is my father's guy. He's the only America First candidate in the race. And you can look into the details. The problem is, again, under Bidenomics, it's hard to survive in America. You may not have the time to do that, so take my word for it. Tell all your friends, make sure they get out, because we can actually change Washington, D.C., or we can do what we've been guilty of for far too long, which is have apathy. We can sit on our butts and do nothing, allow the swamp to take over and do what it does best, which is fail us while enriching themselves. But I think we've all had enough of that. We've seen far too much of that for far too long. So, Bernie, thanks so much. Vivek, thank you for being here for this. Kimberly, as always. And I just want to say we appreciate all of you guys so much. We understand you don't need to do this. You don't need to be here. You could be doing other things, just like we could. Frankly, it was a lot easier before we put the big R next to our name. But we truly believe in these things, and we're willing to fight for them, and we're never, ever going to stop. So thank you so much, Ohio. Thank you for having us here. You guys are the best.
Thank you. Give it up for Donald Trump Jr. All right. Thank you. So I have a couple quick things. You guys ready for the media's head to explode? You guys ready? All right, here's the charge for all of you. Ready? Here's the charge for all of you. Early voting started a week ago. This thing's over in 20 days. I need all of you to vote 11 times. 11 times. 11 times. Now, what does that mean? It means you vote once, vote early, vote by mail, vote in person, whatever it takes, and then find 10 other people and make sure you tell them how important this election is. And then have them do the same thing. I'm going to have the closing comments by somebody who's become a very dear friend. By the way, can we just say that the 5 was so much better when she was on. All right, so much better. All right. She's a fierce fighter. She's amazing. Let's give it up for Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, Ohio. How are we feeling? What do you say? Ohio shows the rest of the country what it's like to make a great decision. A decision to support Bernie Moreno in 20 days. Show this country what it means to put in an America First fighter who is backed by all the winners and fighters that you love. Vivek, Donald Trump Jr., J.D. Vance, they all want this guy. What does that tell you? And if you love this country and you want Donald Trump back in the White House, send him a real